Greetings all, my name is Eric Garland. I'm one of the fellows of the Council of Competitive Intelligence, and welcome to our battle royale between HUMINT and open source / artificial intelligence. We've got 4 of our fellows are going to be going head to head, trying to sway you on which is the gold standard in intelligence today, tomorrow, and soon. And it's going to get vicious. I hope everyone's updated their various insurance platforms, and we're just going to go from there. We have wonderful sponsors for today's webinar. If we can have the next slide and see their beautiful marketing collateral. There we go. Proactive Worldwide examines competitors, suppliers, customers, regulatory issues, and more through advanced competitive market and customer intelligence to deliver a far more complete picture of the decision-making environment with a far-reaching perspective that uncovers hidden opportunities and key threats. With 30+ years of experience, Proactive leverages its own proprietary methodology, a deep bench of researchers and analysts, and in-house industry specialists to produce insights that have real impact. All of us here at the CI Fellows want to express our deep gratitude and thanks for supporting us as a gold partner. Corporate Insight specializes in deep behind-the-login competitive intelligence, evaluating the digital customer experiences across 200+ institutions in financial services, insurance, and healthcare to deliver actionable insight for smarter decisions. The firm's research transforms raw competitive data into actionable intelligence that helps product, marketing, digital, and strategy teams benchmark their performance, identify gaps, and build better customer experiences. The firm's clients include many of the most recognized financial and healthcare institutions in North America, from traditional and online brokerages to retirement record keepers, from national health plans to regional banks. Corporate Insight works most closely with teams in CI, digital strategy, product management, marketing, and compliance. Thank you to both of our 2026 Gold Sponsor partners for the CI Fellows webinar series. And thank you again to both of our presenting gold sponsors, David Kalinowski and Andrew Way. If you as an attendee are interested in learning more about either of these 2 top-tier CI and consulting services companies, their contact information is there. Please reach out to David at Proactive or Andrew at Corporate Insight. The information provided above can also be found on the CI Fellows website at www.cifellows.com under the About Us section. And if you'd like to be a sponsor yourself, or you have a company that you'd like to highlight, please contact Amir or Jeff, and they will showcase the benefits of being a sponsor. Now on to today's Intelligence Battle Royale. My name is Eric Garland. I am the moderator for this event. And as far as my background, I started in the field of human intelligence for competitive intelligence 30 years ago. Back in the Cretaceous period, when the internet was distrusted, back when we had one dial-up connection for multiple analysts, we had to say things like, "Who's using the internet?" When Wi-Fi might as well have been part of a Star Trek script. And when we used Find SVP to send us photocopies of newspaper articles, and when our clients actually paid us to order an investor relations prospectus, a 10K, it would come in the mail. We would go to the post office. They would bring us the 10K. We would read it on paper, and then we would get paid. Things have changed a lot in 30 years. There has been dramatic advancement in information sciences of all sorts. Information comes to us now not only at the speed of light, it comes to us wirelessly. And now we've entered a new phase where some of the analysis and the digestion of that information, even some of the output, can now be automated in a way that none of us ever saw 30 years ago. So the question today for our panelists is, what is the gold standard of intelligence collection? Is it human sources, or HUMINT, as the intelligence community likes to abbreviate it? or has OSINT, open source intelligence, and artificial intelligence has that supplanted HUMINT as the gold standard. And we have opinionated professionals here amongst the fellows. That's the whole point. Everybody here could fill this entire webinar with their opinions. I know my people here. But instead, they're gonna fight it out. So we have two houses. One is going to defend the honor of HUMINT, and the other is going to defend the new horizon of OSINT. Who are the challengers? Introduce yourselves.
Okay, well, I guess I'm the first challenger because I don't think HUMINT is now the gold standard for competitive intelligence information collection. But
Who
I
are
shall
you,
defer.
sir?
I'm Arthur Weiss with Aware. I'm based in the UK, hence the funny accent. But I guess the person who I'm working with is Ben, and Ben can introduce himself, and then we'll throw it over to the opposition.
Sure. Thanks, Arthur. Ben Scheerer, a CI fellow, and work currently at Red Hat Incorporated.
And you're representing the upstarts.
Yes.
You're the usurpers. Well understood. And you ladies, who are you and what do you represent?
My name is Laurie Young. I work at Lone Star Analysis. I've been in the competitive intelligence world for almost 40 years, and I am all about HUMINT.
My name's Claudia Clayton, and I have been in this industry for about 30-something years, and my company is called Pinnacle Insights, and we basically believe that HUMINT is alive and well, but it also can be a great partner to AI. However, AI is not effective alone.
All righty, but we're tussling over the gold standard. Which of these disciplines will represent the gold standard going forward? So you're going to each be allotted 10 minutes to present your primary case, and then the blood sport begins. So I flipped a coin just now and decided that HUMINT will go first. So Claudia, Laurie, you have the floor. 10 minutes to you.
Claudia, you want to start?
Sure. The reason I think HUMINT is alive and well is that despite the fact that AI is very successful and is getting better and better and can really create some efficiency in the process, I think that only human intelligence has the greatest value and is the most accurate. There are lots of support to that in that the information is sometimes more current. It may provide higher levels of assurance because of that. Human conversation results in insights, overall knowledge, and the tendency to obtain information not available from other sources. I have a lot of examples. I'll give a few in a bit, but I also talked to people in the industry and asked them, well, what's your feeling about this? And they said, one of them said, there is no chatbot that can do CI interviews. CI interviews require a lot of training. They require the sophistication to know what to do and what not to do, and who you need to talk to, what information you need that you don't already have. There's a lot of training that goes into doing that. It also allows you to verify and test opinions and information from the AI. You can pivot to something more something that is immediately happening in an organization. If you only take all of this data and information and no matter what the skills are of that technology, and a CEO could be sitting in his office today saying, we're changing everything. So in that particular situation, you're going to be going in the wrong path. General sources of information can be obsolete, misinterpreted, false, difficult to assess. So then you're creating your strategy based on something that really doesn't exist or isn't accurate. I think the best support for this for HUMINT is that the people who do this are highly trained. They can obtain key information not publicly available or not in the data that the AI is looking at. There are skills that you can use to delve deeper into certain areas of an organization. And the only way that can be done is by someone who knows how to do HUMINT. There are, and then in that way you create definitive and reliable answers. If your answers are not definitive, then they are not going to be as effective. Why humans? Human conversation generally creates more insights, knowledge, and explicit outcomes. Practitioners are highly trained, as I said before. They can go farther to identify key answers. They can go down pathways based on what they hear in the conversations. And that definitely can reduce your risk of going the wrong way. Why humans? Okay, so recently and I think this is pretty important. Recently, one of the high-level billionaire tech geniuses indicated that a lot of jobs were going to go away because of AI. But the one thing that he said would be people who work in the aspect of talking and working with other human beings. And so they have particular characteristics that most people can't access. And some of those are being empathetic, able to interest people in conversing with them, working with them in a, the proper way. Just humans are able to get more in depth on information. For example, they have creativity, they have emotional intelligence, they can create human connections and offer empathy, they use problem-solving skills, and they can really surpass AI question levels due to cognitive flexibility. So I think overall, they are more able to dig out the things that are not just available somewhere. I'll give you one more quote from some of the people I interviewed. Measurable business impact does not happen effectively without collaboration, including intelligence, information, and human connection. Is my 10 minutes up?
There's 4 minutes that remain. Laurie, anything
4
to add?
minutes. Oh, I have plenty. Okay. So
I knew there wouldn't be.
See, I do CI, which means I
delivers
can talk
insight.
forever. I can talk and go here and there. Okay. I think that one of the folks that I spoke with said AI presents uncertainty. It is in transition. HUMINT has proven to be very reliable if you follow best practices. HUMINT has been considered to be the gold standard for many years. And outside of the added capabilities of AI, which I agree are making efficiency very accessible, speeding up the process, reducing costs, things like that. But without this piece of intelligence, you may go awry. You may not get what you want. I would say that we are in a situation where a lot of companies are basically ridding themselves of their folks who do product marketing, etc., by eliminating those positions that do this sort of work. But I believe that that's going to come back on them because of all of these capabilities and results that you get from human intelligence. A couple more examples of capture by HUMINT. You may, for example, you maybe have all your information from the AI on this date, and you get together and you do all of your work to decide what you're going to do about it. And then a week from then, or that week even, the CEO in his office says, no, 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 we're going to do something else. Well, how are you going to find out about that? It's really something that isn't out in the newspaper or any of the other data that you're putting in. So you need those people, those strategic people who will be constantly working with individuals who actually know what's happening. And that helps you avoid risk. It helps you meet the goals that you've defined. I will give you a couple of examples from projects. I'm obviously going to make sure that it's not open source all of a sudden. But anyway, the point is that this company wanted to understand two competitors, and the two competitors were supposedly doing the same thing in terms of one facet of the organization's marketing. And as it turns out, it was completely false. So how did we find that out? Well, first of all, we were asked to compare two things side by side with the two companies. The two companies were expected to be providing a particular service, a very simple service, and we looked for both of them, and we can only find one. We can only find it for one of the competitors. And so I asked the AI to tell me, what was going on in that area. I'm being very, general, but when the information came back, there was no information about that particular element for one of them. And so I got some additional sources. I talked to more people, and I said, what's going on with this? And it turned out, by talking to those people, that one of the companies just didn't do that. They left it to the client, and it was the main purpose of this program that we were doing, that we find the information on both of those things for that element. And the client was concerned that they wouldn't get that. Well, we got the fact that it just didn't exist. They managed to carve it out, so they didn't have to do it. It cost them less, and that allowed them to do things more speedily, etc. And so that was the finding, that that really would impact them, because in that case, the company was getting more. It was gaining people faster. It was gaining clients faster. So that's just one example. I've had situations where I worked on projects where you had to, basically the company wouldn't talk to anyone, and they were very secretive, and there's very little information about them out there. I don't know what I can do with that. So we had to dig around all sorts of different sources. And that wound up to be a very successful project. So there are a lot of ways in which HUMINT
Past the 10 minutes. You finish up. You have 30 seconds.
Okay, so that's it. I think human intelligence is still going to be very important. And if you forget about it, then you will pay the price.
Duly noted. Arthur, Ben, your counterpoint on behalf of open source and artificial intelligence.
Arthur.
Oh, okay.
Can
I'll
I
start.
say a couple things for HUMINT?
We'll allow it 1 minute extra. There's
Okay.
going to be time after
HUMINT
this.
delivers insight.
Hmm?
Okay. HUMINT delivers insight, intent, influence, and access. If you're walking a conference floor collecting intelligence, talking to people, you know if they're lying to you. If you're a professional and you can read body language, you do not know AI is lying to you until you go back and check what it says and find out it's hallucinating. HUMINT also gives you an ability to divine context when you're having a conversation. It enables you to read weak signals. It enables you to provide targeted insight. AI and I'm not an human or AI person. AI has its value. OSINT certainly has its value. Working together is the best plan, but neither stand alone. You can't just do a project interviewing people without doing fundamental research. And you can't just use AI without validating the data. And so you have to consider the value of the human interaction, the value of talking to people who have experience, expertise, who can really help you dig in and enhance your analysis. Because as a competitive intelligence analyst, your goal is to enable your client to make the best decisions through providing analysis. And analysis is not just data.
Right. Agreed.
Aha. Are you finished for now?
I am finished, yes.
Excellent. We'll have more time for more interaction after, but just wanted to keep the guardrails on. All right. A formidable proposal has been laid out by Team HUMINT. Arthur, Ben, thoughts?
Okay, well, I'll start and then hand over for Ben, and then I think Laurie's got another chance to talk, and then Ben's got another chance to talk. So we'll carry on. But as Eric quite correctly said, if you go back into the past, 35 years ago, if you wanted to know what a competitor was truly planning, not what they'd announced, not what their press release said, but what they were actually doing, you asked somebody. A trusted contact, a former colleague, somebody who knew your competitor. HUMINT wasn't just the gold standard, it was practically the only realistic standard. And I have a real respect for that tradition. I was part of it. I started my CI career over 35 years ago, so I remember those days. And I understand why those of us who built our careers on human relationships may find this concept and conversation uncomfortable. But discomfort is precisely what we as intelligence professionals live by. We are the messengers of what is happening. We are the messengers of what is new. But too often there are those who want to kill the messenger and keep things as they used to be. That shouldn't be us. The world has changed, and we need to be honest about that. We now live in what can be described as a really loud information environment. Competitors aren't dark anymore. Most of them aren't secretive. They publish constantly. Clues to strategy and much more can be seen in LinkedIn posts, sometimes leaked posts, online job adverts. There weren't online job adverts 35 years ago. Patent filings, regulatory disclosures. As Eric correctly said, in the old days, you'd get your 10K in the mail. So company files, and it's going to be a week later before you see it. Now, it can be the same day. If you wanted to go to a shareholder presentation, you had to be there in person. Now it's online. Blog posts, customer reviews, YouTube videos, including interviews with senior executives. You'd never get that before. And there are 1,000 other signals that simply didn't exist a generation ago. So the world is data rich. That can be a problem, but that's where AI comes in because it can make sense of that. Today, employees share what they do. The customers post in real time about what they think about the competitors' products. There were review sites. Suppliers signal demand shifts before they even show up in a quarterly record. The information we used to have to ask people for carefully, slowly, expensively is now broadcasting itself almost non-stop across publicly accessible channels. And that's the world OSINT was built for. And it's the world we are actually operating in today. It's not just trawling through data manually. It's about having the systems and the discipline to intercept signals that your competitors are not yet paying attention to. Done well, it gives you breadth, speed, verifiability, because you can avoid subjectivity, which is one of the key issues with HUMINT, and scale. 4 things that traditional HUMINT, by its very nature, cannot offer in the same way. And this is before we even get into AI. because AI has not simply made OSINT faster, it's fundamentally changed the cognitive side of intelligence work. The part that we used to inquire a highly experienced analyst who had been trained in elicitation, sitting in a room, possibly for 3 days, connecting dots. Modern AI tools, especially those using agentic search, can synthesize across thousands of sources simultaneously. You can do a search, and within an hour, it will have checked 500 sources. Yes, there is a problem of hallucination, but there are ways of getting over that with what's known as RAG. So now the new technologies mean that if you're getting hallucinations, you're doing it wrong. There's still hallucinations, but there are ways of overcoming that. So we can now look for hiring surges, pricing shifts, supply chain changes that could take a human team ages, days to triangulate. And now we can flag these emerging threats before it surfaces in any human network. And I need to say this carefully. AI doesn't replace analyst judgment. It accelerates it. The analyst, who in the old days would spend 80% of their time gathering and 20% of time thinking, now can invert that ratio. Now they can spend 80% of their time doing the analysis that they're paid to do, because you've got the AI doing the gathering. Okay, you do need to check the information, but that's that 80%. You always had to check information. That's not changed. But now we have the time to do it. AI handles that broad sweep. The analyst, the human being, handles the interpretation. And that's a profound upgrade to competitive intelligence. It's happening now for all organizations that are willing to embrace it. And those that aren't are going to be like those that refuse the internet. So where does this leave HUMINT? Well, here's my core argument, and I want to be very careful about it. I'm not saying HUMINT is dead. I'm saying that it's no longer where you start. The problem with HUMINT as a primary method is threefold. It's slow, it's expensive, and it's deeply, deeply subjective. Building the trust required for a generally useful human source can take ages. It scales poorly across multiple markets or geographies, and crucially, it's only as good as the source's knowledge, their candor, and your ability to read both. And there are professional liars, so don't always trust body language. So there's a structural flaw in starting with HUMINT that too many don't discuss. If you haven't done your OSINT first, what questions do you ask? You may not even know who to ask. 35 years ago, even 30 years ago, how would you find ex-employees? There was no LinkedIn or similar tools where people posted their current and prior employment. Senior executives, of course, were known. They're listed on the 10K. But what about the middle rank, the middle manager, who were and are important? They were hidden. And when they moved jobs, you may never have known. So without prior OSINT, you risk walking into a conversation with a source carrying assumptions and gaps. You can ask the wrong questions. You miss the context that would have made the answers meaningful, or worse. You get an answer that sounds confident, true, and you accept it because you've got nothing to triangulate it against. And this is how intelligence errors happen and how they did happen, not through bad sources, but through incomplete frameworks. So start with OSINT, including agentic AI. Build the broadest possible picture of the landscape on what is publicly known, what can be inferred, what signals are already in the data. Apply AI to accelerate pattern recognition and surface the anomalies that matter. Only then deploy HUMINT. But now it's targeted, efficient. You're not exploring, you're validating and deepening. Your questions are sharper because your context is richer. Your source's answers become more meaningful because you already know what to do with them. HUMINT in this model doesn't disappear, it gets better. It becomes a precision instrument rather than a blunt one, and you can really hone what you do and can sharpen your analysis. The human conversation becomes a final layer of intelligence, not the first. There are things HUMINT can genuinely capture that no algorithm will replicate: the tone, hesitation, the things somebody almost but didn't say, the emotional register of conversation, organizational culture. Informal power structures, relationships that open doors. These are real. I'm not dismissing them. But notice what they have in common. They are depth signals, not breadth signals. They're most valuable when you already know where to look and you need the depth. And that is exactly the role HUMINT should occupy in a modern CI workflow, providing depth, not direction. Yes, the risk of over-automation is real, but so is the risk of over-relying on human networks that are slower, costlier, harder to verify, and limited by the size of your contact books. Balance is the discipline. So decision makers today should not trust a single source, not a single method. Decision makers should trust integrated intelligence, processes that combine the speed and scale of OSINT, the pattern recognition of AI, the depth and nuance of HUMINT, applying in the right sequence for the right questions. So the dangerous thing in intelligence work is not the tool you don't have, it's the assumption you refuse to question. So for decades, HUMINT was the answer. It was genuinely the gold standard for its time. And the practitioners who built careers on it were extraordinary. And the craft they developed isn't obsolete. But holding on to one method because it once worked in a different information environment at a different pace for a different scale of challenge isn't intelligence, it's nostalgia. And we're competitive intelligence professionals. We shouldn't be nostalgic. The world is crying out, it's speaking, the signals are there, and we now have the tools to interpret them, and they've never been more powerful. So the gold standard is knowing when to listen to the data, when to deploy AI to make sense of it, and when, after you've done that, when to pick up the phone and talk to a human being. That integration is where credible decision-making intelligence lives today. Thank you.
All right, do I get a 30-second spot here, Eric?
Yep.
I don't have, so Arthur, that was awesome. I don't have a ton to add to that, honestly. I think you covered our point and our stance very clearly. A few things I want to add, and this kind of maybe dovetails from Claudia and Laurie's presentation, is that yes, jobs are going to go away with AI, right? And however, given Arthur's excellent presentation of our point, I think this is our opportunity as CI professionals to really embrace this and expand our roles, right? How do we define AI in our careers, and how do we further that? So I think, to all Arthur's point, I as a gold standard, I think AI fits. HUMINT doesn't go away, right? But as a starting point for speed, efficiency, resilience, flexibility, that's where AI fits in, right? And with Own It, and as well with even building your own models based on your own information that you're putting in to reduce things like hallucinations, that type of thing. That's for us as CI professionals to go through and disseminate and rectify, right? We've done that even before AI. We know that if we get an interview, if there's a bias there, we're trained to figure out what that bias is. Well, this guy gets paid to do this interview, right? So that's a bias. And we still run into that. However, having a foundation, again, like Arthur said, to include what to ask and who to ask is viable today. I just got done with a project that we use that approach exactly, and I thought it was one of the best projects we've done around persona research. I'll stop there.
So I agree with Arthur 100%. CI analysis is using the tools available to provide whatever you're trying to answer for whomever you're trying to answer it to. AI is a tool. HUMINT is a tool. You interact with them, you integrate them. I would never do a project unless I have a client who says, all I want you to do is talk to people and get their perception of my product, my company, my competitors. And that's all they want. And they've bounded it that way. You would never do a project that's purely HUMINT. Starting with research digging into it from a research standpoint, and AI accelerates that. It ingests data like nothing I've ever seen and recognizes patterns very, very quickly that would take us hours to recognize.
Yeah.
You start with that point, and through that, you then determine what are your intel gaps? What are the questions that you need to get answers? And that's where you employ your tactics to find human people to help you answer those questions. So I agree with 100% that it's an integrated approach.
One of the things we deal with is ethics. And we touched briefly on agentic AI, and I believe it's Anthropic's new model is said to figure out cyber exploits much better than expected. So can we expect at some point an artificial intelligence model doing the equivalent of dumpster diving, jimmying the lock on databases at competitors and coming back? What do we do when an AI comes back with stuff we're not supposed to have?
Can answer that. What if someone left a confidential report on your desk, or an ex-employee offered information on the competitor they came from? That's an ethics question that you have to put in your mind. If you're looking for it and there's an exploit, if it's out on the public web, whatever your ethics code is, that's how you deal with that. If you actually jimmy the lock, I would expect that your competitor would have AI that would anticipate that and counteract that, right? So it's traditional security. If you're trying to jimmy the lock, that's unethical. You're breaking and entering, right? So you can't ask AI to find vulnerabilities in a competitor's infrastructure, right? That's crossing the line, and plus that's illegal. You'll get arrested for that. So can AI potentially make that easier? Yes. Does that give you the right to do it? No.
Can I ask
somebody's in the airplane seat next to you, and they have their laptop open and their PowerPoint is up and they're not protecting it. Yeah. That's considered both ethical and legal. And it's considered sloppy from a defensive point of view.
Right.
And we haven't decided yet. Well, it's like, hey, if you left it so your AI couldn't defeat my AI scanning the landscape.
Can I answer that in a different way?
Please, please.
As you mentioned about Anthropic, all the big companies, there's so many legal cases coming out where people are saying about the information they've gathered, breaching copyright. Can you imagine what would happen to any of these companies if a company found that they had broken in and stolen stuff on a database and made that available? They're going to get sued out of business. They're not going to be exist any longer. So I don't see that happening with any of the big commercial companies, but it is happening now already because of the number of cyber attacks. And one of the things that maybe as competitive intelligence professionals we should be doing is actually looking at risks from bad actors, maybe using AI, not the sort of the commercial AI, but stuff they built themselves, possibly Russian or Chinese people breaking into systems as they're doing already, because a lot of the exploits are by state actors using hacking technology. So is there any real difference? Shouldn't be worried about the commercial people like Anthropic. We should be worried about the bad actors who are there now, and it's just going to be worse. So
well, there could be a similar picture there in terms of why do you want to use human professionals who know what to do and what not to do, and that's part of the reason that you want to work with people who know how to get information without breaking ethics barriers.
So my background's Intel community, and when I was onboarded years ago, we were told that classified information is classified whether or not it ends up in the public venue. So I could read a top secret document one day and see a headline on the Washington Post the next day. It's still classified. It's still classified. So my ethical framework for this is if I see something that I shouldn't, I either act to make sure somebody knows that it's out there. For example, we've found documents online, government solicitation documents, revealing pricing and things that shouldn't be there. And we've gone back to the government source and said, hey, I don't know if you know this, but this is online.
Yeah.
That's the ethical behavior. It's the how do you handle it when you face it?
And that existed before AI, right? You could do a Google search for confidential docs of your competitor, right? No.
And in terms of counterintelligence, flagging it would be more disruptive and more damaging than leaving it there. So it's my understanding that YouTube has a non-trivial amount of classified, but no one will say anything.
But you have the same thing with HUMINT as well. You go to a trade show and one of the salespeople on a conference stand has been a bit careless and they've left the price list that they should have kept hidden open for anybody to see. Unethical behavior is not just AI or OSINT. It's always there, and we always have to guard against it.
And breaches, whether they are automated or whether we are engaged in a conversation hoping for a breach, is the name of the game.
Yep.
We want to know, and maybe you might not want to tell us if you knew exactly what we might do with it, but
and another thing, you can train an AI model to have those behaviors that are upstanding, right? You can't always train a human to do that and expect them to follow your guidance, right? And an AI model is much more obedient.
However, if you're working with people who have done this a long time and, practice ethics, you're actually in some ways definitely covered because that person knows where they got the information, how they got it, who they got it from, and they're not going to give up their entire livelihood, hopefully, to do something wrong.
Right.
That also goes to us recognizing bias. If we're interviewing someone and they've been fired by that company, they're more likely to do whatever they can do to hurt their former company. And as an analyst, it's your responsibility to be able to filter through what they're telling you versus what's reality.
Yeah.
So what HUMINT does,
assuming they've been fired. If you happen to interview somebody and it's not been made public yet, they know, or they are looking for a new job, because sometimes people will speak to you because they're trying to give you a message. And if they're clever, you don't know that.
That's true.
So AI, and who knows how it will be programmed in the future, but AI is programmed to play it straight. And I've done experiments here with AI where the data ethics are quite high. And it's like, well, hold on, I wouldn't put that in a slide yet unless you know that it's got a source. Oh, it's got a source. It's not very cynical, whereas humans can be cynical to go, yeah, really, is that really going on? And I'm thinking of great projects of all 30 years of my career have been, you read it and go, yeah, but what's really going on over there? And we go figure it out. And I think it's not just the top line data. It's the context of an example from way back almost 30 years ago. There was an industry project that a major competitor had taken out a half-page ad in the Wall Street Journal, and they'd announced this unbelievable new offer for their competitors. And our client was alarmed, and so we called the competitor. And I personally interviewed the guy who was behind the initiative, and he's like, oh, we're not going to have that ready for 3 quarters.
Yeah.
we just, my board of directors just wanted it out there. Now, don't tell nobody, but that's not going to be.
But
That's not going to be available.
He should not have
It's
told
a nice
you that.
idea, and I love. It's a beautiful ad.
If they say don't tell nobody, I've done interviews where somebody's told me something and then said, "Oops, I shouldn't have told you that. It's confidential." But they've told you, I cannot use that information.
Right. Exactly.
And when a client then came back to me and said, "Is this all he said?" I'm kind of stuck. And I've actually said, they said other things. They said it's confidential. I cannot relay that information. But even saying that is breaching confidentiality, because I've told my client there is something else out there that I'm not telling them. And if they are unethical, they may then look for somebody else that will get that, or they might be able to, if they have enough knowledge, they can sometimes triangulate and guess what I wasn't willing to tell them, because I've said something's out there. And so it's one of the problems with HUMINT is how to be ethical when you're good at it and good at eliciting, and people tell you stuff that they shouldn't tell you, and that's a real problem. You don't have that in the same way with a machine or with OSINT, because what's out there is public. You don't have that. If you're using it ethically and properly, because you can lie on LinkedIn and you can misrepresent and put in questions, but if you're just using it to gather information, it's public information. It's how you use it, how you analyze it, how you triangulate it, but you don't have that same ethical dilemma. I've just been told something, I can't relay it.
Well, and also one of the best practices for HUMINT on a project we're working on is multiple sources. You don't just rely on one person. You try to find 2 or 3 so that you can see if you're picking up the same sense, the same context from all 3. And then you might have a little bit more confidence in that information. But just relying on one source is dangerous.
Right. Oh, that's an excellent use case for AI, right? Find the patterns and the trends.
Yeah.
So I love how this has gone to an ethical conversation too. So those on the line who don't know, the fellows are actually updating a code of ethics that we should have out sometime well before the end of the year, or even around the end of the summer. So I just want to do a plug on that too. So we've had some very deep conversations on what ethics looks like. And I think as this conversation has turned to that, it's a perfect kind of dovetail into kind of promoting that.
Well, since a lot of the hype, and I find it bizarre in many instances that, well, this is this great new information technology that just that accelerates the capacity of its users. It's going to put everyone out of business. It's like, why would it require shedding jobs this much? Because it should be producing jobs of information workers, making us that much more productive. I personally, my conspiracy theory is that there are some people who love the idea of a technology resulting in economic instability so that they can be more dictatorial about these things. Because these technologies, we're in the business. I don't think AI and HUMINT fight at all. I think AI can give you context that would have taken us weeks back in the day. And I didn't pick up the phone to call anybody for the first 3 to 4 weeks of a dossier. I was too busy reading about construction glass, applesauce, any of the other, minute, industry niches that we were researching. And we spent a lot of time identifying the right guy to talk to. So what is the worst threat here from AI and OSINT? That the time to complete a dossier shrinks to 2.5 weeks? We were never limited.
I think the issue here is money. I think that a lot of these companies are spending incredible amounts of money, and therefore they want to carve something out elsewhere. And so they say, okay, well, we don't need those strategists. Not strategists, but we don't need those CI people anymore, or
junior analysts.
people, your analysts, because, you know, we can just take this and just go by that. And that is cutting off, you know, half of the process. And I would say it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's an old expression. And I think that's what they're doing. And I think a lot of them are going to deeply regret that when more intelligent companies decide that they still need intelligence professionals to sort all this out. So,
But
Yeah.
but that's
The big
not new.
consulting firms.
That's
The
not
big
new at
consulting
all.
firms have all cut. Sorry, go ahead, Arthur.
So I was saying, when the internet came out, people said the same thing. There was a bank I know that many, many years ago, before, I think, I'm not sure if it was before the 2008 financial crash. It was one of the financial crashes where before that, they said, all these old guys over 40, they're too rigid, they're not flexible enough. We're going to let them go. Because we want the young guys that if somebody comes in, I need to borrow some money. Sure. What collateral do you have? Nothing. Doesn't matter. We want to give you the money. And then the crash came and there was nobody there left who knew how to judge a claim, judge a loan. And they lost one hell of a lot of money. And in the end, they sought to hiring these people back. That's always the case. When something new comes along, people say, it's going to take our jobs away. It'll take the jobs away. Somebody said, AI will never take your job away. What will take your job away is the person who knows how to use AI effectively. And those will be the people who will be the people in the future.
That was, yeah, exactly my point earlier, is you have to be able to embrace it. If you're getting fired as a strategist because your boss thinks that AI is taking over your job, you haven't demonstrated your ability to use AI to enhance your work. And you have to figure that out, right? And we're, as a fellowship, we're providing and talking about this topic all the time and coming up with guidance. And we have a summit coming up at the end of this year. There's a ton of good conversation about this. And once we have it figured out, guess what? It's going to change again. So this is our opportunity to stay one step ahead and be able to show our management and our stakeholders in our organization that we can effectively use this, but there are still pieces that are driven by human intelligence that have to happen at the same time.
Something Laurie said about speaking to multiple people. If you look at the results you get with different AIs, they're markedly different. They're really different. So if you're just depending on one AI, you might be missing some things. Another thing you can do is you can ask the AI to play devil's advocate. So you can actually say, I didn't do it, but I probably should have done. So I knew what Claudia and Laurie were going to say, but I probably should have put in, can you produce an argument that HUMINT is the gold standard? So you can use AI to play red team versus blue team, which is much harder to do in real life. Because people, unless you're genuinely red team, blue team, because there's a subjectivity that AI doesn't have.
So we have a question here.
Yeah, that's what I did before this panel. I ran both sides in my Claude CLI. So there you go.
One of my CI fellows, who I respect immensely, told me that he uses 3 large language models and he will check the results of one with the other 2. And when he sees commonality, he feels more confident in the data. But just one, again, it's just like just one source, just one large language model. You can't feel confident in that.
I give an example of just a fairly basic query where out of 4 AIs I tried it on, 2 got the answer completely right, 1 half right, and the other was so completely wrong that it was a joke. And it was a test to see the difference. So I knew the answer. So you do have to play them off against each other. The one that was half right, when I gave it a chance and I said, well, what about this? It then corrected itself. But the one that was completely wrong doubled down. And to be fair on it, I'm not going to say because it's pretty good normally. It's just this particular, I can say it was interpreting a particular stained glass window in an obscure English church. But it's it was a stained glass window designed by Chagall. So it wasn't any old stained glass window. It was by a major artist. And this particular church is unique in that all its windows, it's a remote village church where all its windows were designed by Chagall. So I just gave the AI one of these windows, saying, where is this and who was it? And two got it right.
Which shows maybe that you need to really recheck through a human who talks to people that know whether it's there or not. And that was my example. Is I was just like, wait, there's nothing there. What are you telling me? Anyway.
So it sounds like we're in our last minute here. It sounds like there's quite a bit of comedy. It doesn't surprise me. We're all very advanced thinkers about this subject, and lots of us have adapted to new tools as the years go on, and this is just the latest. And yes, there's the constant pressure from some people. I think there's some short-term vision that goes on in certain executives to go, if I am the one who suggests that we cut half of the people out, then I'm going to be the one responsible for achieving efficiencies, and maybe I'll get a bonus. That's an old story. But it's not as interesting as the story of how we actually advance, which is usually by incorporating these technologies well. So it seems like our professional guild is going to keep thinking, it's going to keep debating this, and we're going to have, the CI Fellows is going to have its annual meeting in September, where we will probably continue this, I should say. So there's a poll for all of you who participated today. Hopefully you will take the second poll questions. Maybe you think something different now than you would have otherwise. Otherwise, it was just a lovely conversation with all of you. It was my honor to be here today, and thank you everyone for attending. And my name is Eric Garland. This is the Competitive Intelligence Fellows, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you so much.